Hey guys, welcome back to the Shack. I got another machine on the table. This one's a little different. It has a little more technology than what I'm used to. Has several relays that can control everything from air assist to your exhaust system. Comes with the M7 and the M8 relays, both of which are pretty neat. This is a 10-watt machine, so it's a little less than what I'm used to. But as far as the engraving capability of the machine, it has actually surprised me. And I've run a bunch of tests with it. I've done engraved tests, I've done photos, and I'm going to share those results with you and kind of go over my thoughts of the machine, some of the pros and cons that I like about it, things that I don't like about it, and kind of share with you how the setup went. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around. I'm going to introduce you to the Neje 3 Max. All right, guys. So first off, there she is. Okay, this machine's a little different than a lot of the lasers that I've seen come through the shop, being that it's not as much of a portable, pick it up and move it around type machine. This machine's a little larger than that. To me, I get the feeling with this machine that it was specifically built to be put into an enclosure house with all of the peripherals. It does have a relay that controls the air assist, cuts the air assist on and off automatically, which is cool. If you're not using shop air like I am, it also has the M8 relay, which will also turn on 120 volt devices as well. I'm pretty sure you can use it with 12 volt power as also if you have things that run off of 12 volt power, but you'd have to pick one or the other to be able to turn on and off. But that's pretty impressive. I really wish that I had those capabilities on EnclosureZilla, and I am kind of looking into trying to implement some of those things, but this machine has all that. It is made of some of the better, thicker extrusions on the side. It does use a total of 4 rollers instead of the traditional 3. That gives it a lot more stability in the gantry. The module, this is the Neje, I believe it's called the E40 module that's on this machine. I know Neje makes an adjustable focus module, and then they make this guy, which is a fixed focus. One thing that I will share with you, if you're getting one of these things and you're going to be putting it together, guys, if you like tinkering and you like customizing and you just kind of enjoy putting things together, this one's pretty cool. The way it goes together, the way that you can kind of position things where you want them. Like I said, if you were building it into an enclosure, that's pretty awesome. If you're one of those guys that likes to open the box and put the laser on the table and go to cutting, this probably ain't going to be something you're going to want to, fool with. You may want to invite a friend over that does enjoy putting them together. Me and my buddy Klein took some time and put this thing together most of the way yesterday until I found out that there were a few pieces that I wanted that I didn't have. And more specifically, guys, this thing was made to be mounted like on a piece of plywood or a spoil board. It's not necessarily made to be sitting on a honeycomb, which was a problem for me because I like using honeycombs. I do a lot of cutting, and so I wanted to put a honeycomb on it. So I had to kind of engineer using some scrap wood, kind of a platform to raise the machine up the same distance as the honeycomb so I could put a honeycomb underneath it. All right. Secondly, because I'm not putting it on a big spoil board, because that's just going to, it's not something I'm going to do right now, I had to make me a little tab over here to attach the drag chain to so that the drag chain would work properly. And the emergency stop button didn't come with any kind of, attachment to attach it. A couple of the brackets looked like they would have worked, but I needed them in other places. So there was that. I'm going to move you over to the other side of the machine and kind of show you how I configured it. I do like the fact that I was able to do what I wanted to as far as cable management. And guys, I gotta say, I think I did a pretty good job on the cable management of this machine. It looks clean. It does look industrial and very robotic, but I don't have cables running everywhere, and I really like that. So I'm gonna move around to the other side, get you a little closer, and that way you can see some of the things that I've done. All right, guys. So right here on where everything goes together, the cables actually come. The USB cable and the power cable both run through the drag chain. The control board and all the electronics are housed right here on the end of the gantry. All the wiring, the hose, this is the relay that controls the air assist on and off. I did drill a couple of extra holes because I couldn't find a way that I liked the look of the mount. So I did drill a couple of extra holes so that I could mount this relay the way that I did to kind of just keep it clean, keep everything together, and make it look good. I didn't cut any of the cabling except for I did cut the wires off of the emergency switch. And that wasn't entirely on purpose. I'd got everything put together, and when I went to try to put the switch into my little holder, I realized that I was either going to have to take all this cabling loose or just desolder the wires and resolder them to the switch. So I chose to resolder these wires rather than try to snake that wire back through the drag chain there. So the machine works really, really well. It runs really smooth. I did take, when I mounted it to these boards, I set it on the table, and I've used a square to make sure that it's square. And I don't know if you can see them or not, but I have clamps on 3 of the corners securing it to the table to try to keep it from moving or twisting, because as long as these extrusions are, you could get it bent and cause some issues with some of the rollers and tracking and the movement of the machine. The design is pretty simplistic. Focus, I have found that coincidentally, the thickness of the plywood that I typically use works really well for the focus, for engraving and so forth. And so I've been kind of using that as just a gauge. I just slide a piece of scrap wood under there. When it sits down on top of it, that's where I leave it, and been running it, and it's doing a pretty good job with that. Now, I have got a camera set up on it. Okay, over here, guys, you can see that this machine also has dual steppers. It's got one on this side and one on that side. And I think that's a really good thing, because as long as this machine is, I could see the potential for some issues if that wasn't the case. Plus, it keeps it a lot cleaner in here because you don't have that timing linkage that runs from one side to the other, and gives you a little more clearance as far as when you mount this thing, you have a little more clearance beneath the gantry to be able to do work. Because a lot of times I'm engraving on 1 inch thick, 1.5 inch thick materials, and you need to be able to get the laser head above the material when you're engraving. And the way that this thing sits and the way that it travels, the fact that you have to more or less attach it or develop your own legs to raise it up, and that seems like that would be a pain without a, if this was in my enclosure where I had the bed that goes up and down, that would make life a lot nicer, a lot better for it. I will say that these low extrusions here do make it really easy for your material placement, getting it on and off. There's nothing in the way here. I like that. It's kind of clean. And if this was in an enclosure specifically built for it, I think I could make it look really, really good. But like I said, it's still, right now it's rocking the 10-watt module. And although it does a really good job at engraving, I'm not ready to dethrone any of my other machines at this point. The manual, typical for what you would expect with most of these lasers, not that great. Videos out there, everybody seems to have had the same problems I did. The manual wasn't that great, and some of the parts, putting it together as a standalone machine was a little more challenging than some. The focusing works really well. It does have the thumb screw, but it has the elevator screw that brings the machine up and down. You have to loosen one of these guys depending on how you've got it held, and then you can just turn the thumb screw and it goes up and down. That's pretty easy. The addition of a kickstand would not have hurt my feelings, but it's not terrible. It does have the dreaded red glass cover over the laser, but I did find that there's 2 little grub screws right here. You can back those guys out, and you can actually raise that thing up out of your way just enough to where you can see the dot without having to take it off altogether. So that's what I did. So, because I like using the dot for framing, but I don't like having that cover in the way because it makes it kind of hard to see on some materials. So you can just loosen those Allen screws, raise that little cover up, tighten it back, and you're good to go. And that's what I did with that. That made my framing a lot easier with it. All right, guys, so I did a test of almost every kind on this machine just to see what it was capable of. And my recommendations is, if you're getting this machine for cutting, it's probably not the best choice. However, if you're getting this machine for doing fine detailed engraving for large objects, it's a pretty good pick. The automated air assist is really, really nice, but I don't think this machine was intended for cutting. The power output compared to some of the other machines on the market, it's not going to be able to stay with them as far as a 10-watt machine. Now, if you're doing engraving primarily, occasional cutting, it will cut. It cuts good. The air assist is awesome. I like that part. This is only the second machine that I've had in the shop that had automatic air assist, and this is the first machine that I've ever had in the shop that I could run off of shop air and use automatic air assist. And I dialed this thing up to 20 psi, and I've played with the pressures and all that, and I have found that it seems to be 10 psi is kind of where it seems the sweet spot is. So this is the results that I had, guys. This is no air assist, and these two here are exactly the same settings. So air assist definitely made a big difference. It made a huge difference in the cleanliness of the cut, and actually helped power it through a few more levels of cutting. And I'm going to show you the back of these two, because sometimes the back, this is without air assist, and this is the with air assist. So even the back of the cut with 10 psi to the regulator was doing a really good job of keeping both sides of the material clean. And you can see that it tried to come through on some of the other cuts, but just wasn't quite there. And guys, this was only 2 passes, okay? These were 2 pass burns. So that's not terrible for a 10 watt. Typically speaking, I find that most 10 watts, 4 passes are required to cut this material. So the fact that it's able to do it in 2 passes, it's not bad, but that doesn't make it a heavy hitter as far as cutting. Now, so I decided that I wanted to see what this machine was capable of in a single pass, because a lot of you guys, you know, you like to try to do the single pass so you don't have to watch it go around a couple of times. So I did another test using the air assist with the same amount of pressure, and I did a 1-pass test grid. And that's what this here is. That's a single pass test, and you can see I got pretty clean results, but the speeds are very, very low compared to the speeds that you can run doing the 2 passes. So if you do the math, if it'll actually cut it out at 7 millimeters a second with 2 passes, technically that's going to be a little faster than running it at 1 pass at 3 millimeters a second. So in my opinion, you're still better to run the 2 passes at 7 millimeters a second to get that clean cut. And this also, guys, I want to point out, I did the best I could with getting this thing to exactly the best focus I could get out of the machine. What I did is I just took the cover, raised it up so I can see the dot, and I adjusted the focus based on dot size. So that was as much work as I felt I needed to put into getting the focus to the correct depth. So cutting's not a strong suit, but it will cut. You're just going to need to run a couple of passes. All right, the next thing that I did, and I did this on purpose, this is one of those really, really eccentric engraving tests, guys. And I wanted to do it to see how much of a variation I could get, because looking at the dot size of the machine, the way that it travels, and the output, I felt like this machine would be really good for engraving photos and doing those detailed images that everybody likes. So what I did is I set up a 20 by 20 engraved test grid in Lightburn, and I ran that. And yes, guys, it took a while, okay? But all in the name of science, right? So I did the engraved pattern, and that's what I got. And you can see, you can actually make out the grain of the material, so you're gonna have to kind of overlook that. But the gradient that you can get with this machine, the possibility of the different colors and different shadings is pretty good, okay? So it's actually at 100% at 200 speed is this top corner right here. And it's actually still leaving a mark, even at 200 speed. So pretty good, it's pretty good range of the burn, pretty good detail. So once I saw this, then I used that to kind of determine, okay, I want to do a photo. So let me do a photo. So I went on here and I picked out 100% power at 110 millimeters per second, which would put me really close to being right there. And I ran an image. And this is an image that you may be familiar with if you've watched the channel. It's an image that I just grabbed off the internet. One of the Library of Congress or somewhere, just a black and white old photo. And it turned out really, really well. The detail is better than any of my primary machines. I'll put it to you that way. So the detail was really, really good. You can barely even see the dot size on this thing. So, I mean, as far as photo quality goes, I've got to give this thing a really, really good marks. There is no, this is done on Jarvis, and you can't really tell where the pigment, the pixels are, because normally you can kind of see pixels. But not with this machine. So after seeing that, I was kind of impressed, and I was like, okay, well, it's definitely an engraving machine over a cutter at this point. So I decided, you know what, guys like to do MDF. I've seen some pretty cool 3D stuff on MDF. I wonder how this machine would do on MDF. And so I took the picture that is the background of my Facebook page and my YouTube channel. It's just a picture of my shop. It's a very dark picture, black and white, and I dropped it in there and ran it. And that's what I come up with, guys. And I don't know if you're familiar with that image, but that's some really cool detail. I mean, it's pretty insane. The detail that this machine has is very surprising. I will say that. So if you're getting a machine for engraving, this guy's it's really, really good at that. I'm probably going to throw another image in there and try to burn that on some cedar, because I found that cedar does really, really good job with images. So I figure, since I've got a really good machine that's good at images, while I got it on the table, I'm going to take and try to come up with something pretty cool for the shack here. All right, guys, after a lengthy burn, I was able to get an image done with the Neje 3 Max. And I will say that engraving is obviously this guy's strong suit. Like I said, the large work area, it makes it easy for placement and doing larger items. And the quality, well, I'm gonna have to say it's pretty good. Look at that guy right there. Yeah, I was bored, guys. I didn't have any images that I needed to do for jobs, so I just made up one. You know, whatever. I'll hang it up in here somewhere. But guys, like I said, all together, solid machine. I will say this: if you don't like tinkering, you don't like installing, putting things together, trying to make them work, you may not like this machine as well. You may want to invite a buddy over that does like doing those things, and you know, maybe buy him some drinks and let him help you put it together. If you're wanting something straight out of the box that requires very little thinking to put it together, it's probably not going to be it. But it is worth the difficulty for us folks that like to tweak and fix things and create things. It was fun. That part of it was fun. It took me a little longer than most of the machines where you have like 8 screws and they're together, but it was actually fun, and it is rewarding to see the machine working. It's doing a good job. I would definitely recommend mounting this thing to a piece of stationary wood or aluminum or something like that to kind of give it a little more rigidity. So that's something to consider with the machine. But if you're interested, I'll put links down below, and you can go check this guy out and give it a try. Let me know what you think. So until next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.